everybody to the Convince Me podcast, where we are on a mission to help you step out of your gaming comfort zone and try something new. With that said, let's get to convincing. Last episode, Darren and I did a normal episode where I tried to convince him and you all to play or try Sandland, and he tried to convince me, as well as you all, to try Forged in Shadow Torch, or colloquially known as Fist. I think we were both moderately successful. I think Darren has done a decent job with his choices. I don't know why I'm speaking about you like you're not here. You have done a decent job with your choices of picking games that would appeal to me from a gameplay perspective. It seems your closing argument for a few of the games that you've chosen is like, this game is for you in one way or another. I'm curious to see if you continue that trend. So this week, I will be convincing Darren and you all to try Back for Blood, and Darren will be convincing me, as well as you all, to try Crypt Custodian. Now, full disclosure about this week, I am officially on summer break. This will be the second episode that we recorded since I've been on summer break, but this past week has been my first full week of working the summer camp I work at. It's an entirely outdoors camp. It has been so hot here, and I'm outdoors all day in the forest, and I've noticed that during the school year, I have a bit more energy because I'm inside, and I don't have to be as on all day as I do at this camp because I work all day, and I also drive a bus for this camp. So I have been exhausted every day that I've come home, and I have tried to put as much time into my game. So I'm curious to know if I played enough to convince you, Darren, as well as you, the audience. And I want to take this opportunity to move on to our question of the week before we get to our games, because the question that I settled on was inspired by a video that I was watching while I was doing dishes earlier from a YouTuber called Daryl Talks Games. And what he does is he makes video essays about topics related to games, and oftentimes he'll talk about the psychology behind it. And so the one that I was listening to while I was doing dishes was about finishing games. Basically the question of, why do some people who are playing games not actively seek to beat the games they're playing? Specifically, the point of no return. Why is it that the moment we're notified of a point of return, oftentimes we'll either not do it, or we will turn around and go do something else? Like that's the gist of what the video is talking about. And it brought me back to some conversations we've had, because I'm trying to, I racked my brain trying to think of an example. But while I keep thinking of my examples, Darren, my question for you: has there ever been a game where you reached the point of no return and never actually finished it?
Yep. And the funny thing about that is it's actually my game for next week. So, spoiler alert, next episode, we're going to do the second iteration of Convince Me Nostalgia, where we go back and play games we loved and see if they hold up and still bring us the happies and jollies. My game for next week is none other than a game I've referenced multiple times on the show so far, and that's Lost Odyssey. And Lost Odyssey, for me, I put an absurd amount of time into that game. I found pretty much everything. I got to the dungeon where you got the crafting material where you can choose to make one of two ultimate weapons depending on which character you want to have it. And I did all that. And then it was time to go beat the game. And to this day, one of my favorite games of all time that I spent a ton of time into and will still hail is easily a top probably 3 RPG all time for me. I have never seen the end of.
Yeah.
And I don't entirely know why I did that, especially at the time of my life when I was doing that. So it was later towards the end of college when I actually really sat down and played the game to that effect. I had tons of time on my hands. I don't recall at that point in time there being a ton of other things that were coming out that I wanted to play. For whatever reason, I got to that point in time and I put it down and never picked it up again. And it has nothing to do with the game itself. It has nothing to do with the storytelling. The storytelling is some of the best I've ever seen in a game still to this day. Honestly, it's a hill I'll pretty happily die on.
Yeah.
Um, but for whatever reason, I 70, 80 hours, never beat it.
So mine is an interesting one. So I have played games for a very long time, and my brother used to have friends over, and they'd be just hanging out, and I'd be playing games in my living room, and I was the kid who gaming was really all I did. I'd do homework, I'd be done at school, go home. If I had homework, I'd finish it, and then I'd play games. Like, that was the entirety of my day in high school and middle school. Um, Other than, like, going out with friends every now and then to play outside, which I did do a lot, but if I wasn't doing that, I was playing games. And so there was one day, and I don't know why this moment stands out to me, but I was playing, I don't remember something, and one of my brother's friends made a comment. It was playful, but it was also snarky. About, I don't remember exactly what he said, but that he talked about the speed with which I finished games. Like, it was just a comment about how quickly I finished games. And it was that comment that made me go, that made me, I don't know, like, second guess how I played games. And so I reached a point where I would get to a point in a game, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm almost at the ending, but I can't beat it because, like, it's too fast. I'm beating it too fast. I'm not enjoying it the way I'm supposed to. And one game I remember vividly doing it with, this one I actually do remember, was Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. I loved that game. I had so much time into that game. And I don't know why. It was all I did. It was all I thought about. It was my ideal game, and I'm sad to know that I'm blanking on the name, sadly. But the studio that made that game doesn't exist anymore, because that studio had a lot of firepower behind it. I think Ari Salvatore worked on it, and there were a lot of big names that worked on that game. So I loved it, and I didn't want it to end. And so I got to the final area of Reckoning and then just stopped. I don't know why. I didn't have a reason. Nothing else came out that I dropped it for. I just didn't do it. I think partially because I didn't want it to end, and I had my brother's friend's voice just like ringing in the back of my head. So yeah, Reckoning is a game that I've never finished, even though honestly it is the closest thing I could have to my ideal game, because the open world, the quest nature, the combat, the factions, dialogue choices, skill trees, equipment loadout, like, it is my ideal game that I just never finished.
It was kind of loot droppy too, wasn't it?
It was a loot dropper. It was an action RPG open world loot dropper. You could get your own house. and which is another mechanic that I absolutely love, is getting a house and being able to upgrade it, modify it, and do all those things. So it ticked all my boxes, and I remember vividly talking to you about that game and constantly trying to like sell it to you so you try it and play it. I don't know that I was convincing enough.
I owned it. I owned it. I played some of it. It's just it came at the same time as
It was
Mass Effect
2012.
3. It
I
was
looked it
Mass
up.
Effect 3.
Yeah, it
And
actually.
remember they had like parallels to it. So there was a chakram launcher in Mass Effect 3 to cross promote Kingdom of Amalur
And Amalur had the
while
blades, and it had a whole
that's right
outfit.
yeah. That's right. So I mean, you went the direction of Kingdom of Amalur, I went the direction of Mass Effect, and that was it. It's not that I didn't play it. I did play it some. I just for whatever reason it didn't do for me what I wanted to. And if I remember, wasn't 2012 a super loaded year?
We can look that up at the end of the episode. I will pull that up to talk about. I'm curious about that year.
I mean, to be fair, even if it wasn't, depending on when it came out in 2012, it wasn't even a full year that Skyrim came out. So it's not hard to imagine that Skyrim just me back. Wait,
That
2012 Borderlands 2,
we will look up. We will look up what happened
2012
that year.
Borderlands 2, 2012
Um.
Borderlands 2,
So,
like
but yeah,
2012
that's
Borderlands
that's
2.
that is a game that I just. There are a few, but Amalur is the one that stands out to me because it is the one that makes the least sense as to why I didn't finish it.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, in my mind, right, I imagine it is something along the lines of I wasn't ready to be done with the world, and the idea of the point of no return means there's that finality to it, and there's no going back to how it was before you beat it. So even if you pick it up and play it again, like it just still feels different.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, I don't know. I imagine that's what happened to me with Lost Odyssey. I loved that story so much, and I wasn't ready for it to end, and there was the ending impending, and I just said, nah.
Do you feel that same way about your game of the week, Crypt Custodian?
So, Crypt Custodian. This will potentially surprise surprise nobody that I somehow managed to find another Metroidvania. It's an action adventure platformer RPG as the tags, and it is like 2.5D, right? So it's map progression systems more like, I don't know, like Legend of Zelda Minish Cap type progression, um, with your Metroid map style, where it's all grids and you explore new areas and find new things. But that's what it is. So made by one dude, made by Kyle Thompson, whose brother did the music for it. Both high points, to be fair. Like the fact that effectively two people made this, um, just really pretty good. Um, it you follow the story of a cat
Naturally.
who died. You find out pretty early that his name is Pluto. He he was a stray, got adopted, had great owners, and then for one reason or another, like got out one night, got hit by a car, and so here you are in this afterlife, and you progress through this little opening area, and you meet the person who makes the judgment on whether or not you were good in order to pass into this palace where your soul would live in bliss forever. or if you were to be cast out of the palace and you'd have to live on the outskirts and be tormented for all eternity. When you arrive there, as you try to progress to the point where you're supposed to be, you can't. There's like a bunch of jars, vases, statues, things like that. So you walk around, you end up finding a broom, and your broom is your primary and only melee weapon. And it is on. This is a Games Pass game, so it is just X to swing. You do have the ability to equip abilities later. Those get mapped to your B button, but it's pretty much just swing, dodge. Um, so you go, you break through the pots, get to the area you're supposed to. Everything's going well. And right as Judgment is getting past, a little memorandum comes across their desk. It said, "Wait, you mean that then you died and you broke my pots?" And so you go from getting a positive judgment to now your soul is tormented for all eternity, and you get to be a custodian of the grounds around the castle forever. And your sole lot in life is just pick up trash forever. So that's what you do. You go around, you defeat enemies. Your primary currency that gets dropped is trash. You exchange trash like for the special abilities, but then you also get like active and or passive abilities that require ability slots. As you progress through the game, you find additional nodes which let you equip more abilities as time goes on. So when I stopped playing, I had acquired an ability where eventually you unlock a dash, which you can use in lieu of your dodge, but it also lets you air dash to effectively double jump. I acquired ability where when I dash, I damage enemies, and then when I defeat enemies, they release little AoE burst of spikes to damage other stuff in the area. Combat play is pretty much exactly what you'd expect a 2.5D Metroidvania to be. Anywhere between 2 and 8 enemies on the screen. Use your dodge button, use your jump button, attack, deplete health bars. The boss fights are pretty good. The boss fights end up becoming more bullet helly than you would expect them to.
Mm-hmm.
And that was honestly crazy high point. First relevant boss, which of course you and I would both love, is called Jar of Spiders. Now, game is super cutesy, not that daunting, not that creepy at all. But like Jar of Spiders just throws spiders at you all the time. Spiders are also in smaller jars. But a lot of bullet hell patterns to it. What really won me over with this game from it, at the end of the day, it's another Metroidvania, right? Developed by one dude, music developed by his brother. The music is good, atmospheric, but not anything that I'm going to pull my phone out and Shazam it to figure out what it's called. But what really won me over here is the creativity with some of the level design, especially as it pertains to some of the puzzles that they put in. So, pretty early on, you come to these platforms and there's this ghost that just chills. And as you look around, it like zooms out your perspective so you can see the whole room that you're in, and you see that there's other tiles, and you can surmise, okay, I need to get the ghost to these other tiles. And your only way of interacting with the ghost is to hit it in one of the 8 cardinal directions that you can aim. And when you do that, the ghost will just travel in a straight line until it either hits a wall or vanishes out of existence and then goes back to its starting point. Right off the bat, the way that you have to do some mental gymnastics to figure out some of these puzzles was probably the most mentally pleasing for me since the ice cave puzzles back in Pokemon Gold and Silver, where you had to push the rocks to get them to be in certain places so that your movement could be stopped and get off to the end. It's that style for me. It was so very pleasant. They were never that hard, but they were hard enough that you had to think it over. And there's probably multiple ways of doing all of them. So that became a very rewarding thing pretty quickly. Couple that with there's whole rooms where it's almost like a time trial room where you have to have mastered the mobility mechanics to pass through, incorporeal stopwatches before they run out, or you have to start over in order to drop this gate where you could get either a new ability or an ability point or something of the like. So I honestly, I mean, for what this game does, it did it very, very well. It is a game that is honestly super easy to pick up and put down. Um, I go starting to get further and deeper into it. There are new people that you meet in this world, and there are relationship points and affinities that you get with them,
Of course.
which I didn't expect. But then all of a sudden, by the end of it, I'd encountered two more people whose relationship levels I was building. One of whom gave me an ability. The other one seemed to have been creating a plan to dig under this fence of the outer gates in order to break into the palace, which seems like that might actually be your end goal here, because he specifically said make as many friends as you can, and then we basically all try to break out at the same time and just overwhelm them to try to get in. Because inside of the palace there is this mirror where you can allow your soul to briefly be on Earth again. None of the people who lost you can see you, but you can still see them and feel their presence and be around them.
Well,
So they're
that's
all, trying to grasp
heartbreaking.
their. Oh yeah, dude. They're all trying to grasp. They're all animals, but they're all trying to grasp their some sense of what they lost. You you explore and discover these like um, old photographs that give you a little bit of background on some of the characters you find and what happened to them and how they died, or what their life was like before they died, when they died. It's got a surprising amount of depth to it, given that it was made by one dude.
How does movement feel when you're running
So
around?
movement very fluid. It you can't necessarily tell that you're only really performing actions in the cardinal eight directions because your movement is full 360, but the attacks only occur in the eight. So I mean, it feels exactly like you'd hope it would. The jumping is clean. There is a bit of forgiveness to the platforming, where if you're landing on a narrow space and you land, it will auto correct you to the middle of that to an extent, which is honestly great because precision platforming in games like that is infuriating. And so they took some of the precision out of it to make it more approachable, for sure.
It's not Celeste.
Um, no, it is not Celeste. Well, Celeste is also true 2D, so it's definitely not that. Um, the way that the ability points work reminded me a lot of Hollow Knight, as far as the way that it gives you abilities to interact with everything. It's easier than Hollow Knight in every single way. It's definitely not a difficult game. There's no punishment for death other than having to get back to where you were when you died. You don't drop anything, you don't lose anything, just some time and distance progress.
Yeah, makes
Um,
sense.
but as you unlock new traversal mechanics like that air dash, it really does open up past areas that you've been to, which there are fast travel points that you can do that with. So basically, every one of your save spots is a well, and you can fast travel between every well that you found, which is also where you equip your abilities. So I mean, it's a very complete game made by one dude and the music done by his brother. It is at the end of the day just another Metroidvania. So if you like Metroidvanias, this is a great, much easier, more approachable version of one, I think. Um, but it is fundamentally still that's what it is. I'm not gonna stand here and try to sugarcoat it. I really did enjoy it. I found myself having a lot of fun with it. Um, there's definitely gonna be some varieties to the builds that you can make once you start unlocking more abilities. But at the end of the day, it is another melee-based Metroidvania game with some minor bullet hell mechanics.
Bullet Hell is fun. It can
Mm.
absolutely have has its place. Um,
Bullet hell is fun when you have a jump, especially
yeah,
makes things a lot easier. It's definitely a mental switch you have to flip. For anybody who's listening who's never played OG bullet hell games or has never picked up something like Binding of Isaac or Enter the Gungeon,
Or
or
Near
Ikaruga, or but the original Nier, as much as it
absolutely
had
has
bullet
bullet
hell,
hell segments.
it does. But as much as it has those, you can destroy any bullet on the screen. So like,
Yeah,
you know,
I
but
like bullet hell.
there's a specific switch you have to flip mentally to be able to be successful in the bullet hell arena. Um, and honestly, it's such a stark contrast to some of the platforming and mash X until they die with a dodge in between mechanics that it made the game feel. Or let me rephrase. It never gave the game a chance to feel one dimensional,
Good.
which I think games like this can easily do. Feel
Yeah.
one dimensional, feel too samey, get stuck in this loop, and then you don't want to play it anymore. This game did not suffer that problem at all.
How long does it take to beat?
That's a good question. I have not looked. Let's see. About 10 hours.
Okay, that's a decent.
13 if you want 100% it.
Okay.
So not bad at all. If you're somebody who has a lot of time on your hands and not a lot of stuff to play, you could probably pick it up on a Friday and put it down by beating it on a Sunday. A
Sure.
good weekend game if you have that kind of time and attention span to play and you
I
take to
think
the mechanics.
those are good games to have because
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you there are definitely going to be lulls like if you aren't willing to spend the money on a new game, right? Or you don't have anything that you're looking to buy quite yet. It's always nice to have those fallback games. Like I remember an article forever ago. I'd have to look it up. I can't remember who wrote it or what site it was, but it talked about um, they have their Sunday game, which is
Mm.
it's a game that they would sit down on a Sunday and play beginning to end and just finish it. And for me, that game was Metal Gear Solid 2, which
Hmm.
for those listening are going, how the heck did you do that? Well, that was I played so much Metal Gear Solid 2, and if I skipped the cutscenes, which after beating it, I don't even know how many times, I would skip all the cutscenes just to get to the gameplay. I could finish the entirety of Metal Gear Solid 2 in 5 hours, like sub 5, because I knew exactly where to go. I knew exactly what to do. I knew all the tips and tricks to beat the bosses quickly. I played on different difficulties. I could just blaze through it, and so it's nice to have just a game to just play over the course of a day. And so it sounds like this could potentially be that game, like just or a weekend game, like you said. So
Definitely, especially because it's not a roguelike. And so because it's not a roguelike, every time you progress through areas you've been, it's the same. Enemy placement is the same, enemy behavior is largely the same. Other than defeating enemies to get extra trash, you don't have to beat anybody other than, the trash is used to buy new abilities in one place. Um, and like that's pretty much it.
yeah, I'll give it a
So
shot.
you
I
can
think a cozy
it's
weekend
very
game is
approachable.
yeah.
Very approachable in that way. I'd say it's from like a fun perspective, I'd put it right about the same amount of fun as I had with Moonlighters, which is to say a pretty good amount of it.
Um, based on the art of the game, like the cover art, would you classify this game as a go so far as to classify it as a cozy game?
No, no, there's no cozy elements to it. It is still at its crux a Metroidvania game.
Okay. So the
The
art's
art, however, makes it feel like this whole game was imagined by like a kid who drew up some pictures when they were a kid of like what he thought a frog would look like, and then that's how the frogs look
that's fun though.
in real life or in the game. So it's no, definitely not something I would call cozy. There's no building, there's no prospering, there's no nothing like that.
When I
But it
well,
is definitely, I would go so far as to say, of all Metroidvanias, this is the least serious one that I've played, the least punishing one that I've played, and the one that you could easily probably get to and through the fastest while still enjoying it.
Sure. Well, I also think cozy doesn't necessarily have to be like a life sim. I think cozy just means like it's the opposite side of the spectrum of like hyper realism and you gotta go for realistic physics. It's just like, you know what, this
Yeah,
game just feels nice to play. This is just like a sit in a blanket, curl up and just pop this joint on and just spend a few hours just losing myself in it.
sure.
But I don't know, I guess cozy is different for everybody. So we take your topic of the afterlife and we stay there. We hold that just a little bit. As we
Okay.
go over to Back for Blood, which is a game that was made by the same people. Well, I don't think all of them, but it had some people who worked on Left 4 Dead.
Hmm.
Back for Blood is by a studio called Turtle Rock Studios, and it's the same people who worked on Left 4 Dead and Evolve. For those who don't
Hmm.
remember Evolve, it was an asymmetric multiplayer game where one person controlled a monster and the other players controlled people and pitted against each other. I think it was PvP, might have had some PvE elements, but Back for Blood is in the same vein as Left 4 Dead. There was Left 4 Dead kind of altered the brain chemistry of a lot of gamers. Left 4 Dead was a zombie game, but the cool thing about it was it it was a game that had a director, like the computer was a director and it would decide to send zombies out, and it was a horde shooter, so to speak. And let me double check to make sure I'm. Yes, so the director is in Left 4 Dead was an AI that it was a dynamic system, so that way your game would always have different dramatized situation. The pacing would be different. It could alter the difficulty, and that was revolutionary because you didn't know when the horde when you would experience different zombies, and it also altered the multiplayer scene because it was a game that you could play with 4 friends or 3 friends because there were 4 of you, and it was just chaotic shoot 'em up fun. And people who play that game remember the witch, which was this little white creature that you would hear a little girl crying, and it would have the it would have a specific song, and everybody who played that game enough knew that song and knew everybody would panic when they heard the witch crying because the witch was horrible to fight and fast and strong, and it was just so much fun. It would be challenging to explain to someone how much fun gaming like that was to somebody who'd never done it. And I I remember getting my second Xbox controller because of that game. I went over to my friend's house. I had just gotten Left 4 Dead. I can't remember if I bought my Xbox or I think I had to bring mine because he didn't have one. But I got a red Xbox 360 controller so that way I could play that game with him. And I remember that so well just because I didn't really play many games with other people because my brothers by that time weren't really playing games. So Back 4 Blood took me back there. Because Back 4 Blood is a very similar experience where it's roguelitey and runs are determined by cards. that the director pulls to alter how the game works. So the director may pull a corruption card that requires you to get an extra reward, you have to carry a certain item to the end of the level. The issue is that the item that you're carrying fills up one of your slots, so you lose a slot to potentially hold first aid kit, or a bandage, or a taser, or whatever other item. You have to give up a slot, basically. You may get a card that alter how the zombies work, or they change how the game works to your detriment in some way. But you also get your own cards that maybe increase your damage, or how much ammo you find, or that passively change how your character plays. I think the one that I remember getting was that I think I reloaded faster, but I had a percentage chance of going blind for 1 second whenever I took damage. So it didn't, every time I took damage, it didn't happen, but like your screen, you basically get flashbanged in a random percentage every time you took damage, but it gave you a buff. So there are different things that you can find that you spend copper on, which you find in levels, that change the way the level's going to work. You also get card decks that you can do supply lines, use supply line points to purchase, where you can literally build a deck that alters how your game, how your run is going to work. So, as far as the story goes, I'll get to gameplay in a second. So, the thing I will say about the start of this game is that it's fairly unceremonious. And by that I mean, you start the game, title screen, you sign in, you can either play online or offline. I chose offline. And you just literally get plopped down in this camp. And the camp, if you've played, there are a lot of games that do this. One that comes to my mind is Vermintide 2, where in this camp you can go to different places in the camp that are different features, like just equipping your character, creating your deck, the practice range, all these things. But the interesting thing that always stood out to me is you can do all these things through a menu. So you pull up the menu, you can press like R1 or R2 or whatever to go over to then create your deck, or press a shoulder button to then go over to equip your character. So the camp is an interactive version of your pause menu.
At any time?
No, you can only activate this menu when you're in the camp.
Oh.
Once you're doing a run, like, your menu is like what you have equipped and things like that. So, but it always stood out to me in Vermintide in this game that walking around the camp is just an interactive menu to do the things that you could literally just hit the pause button and do them there. So I don't know. I guess if you want to be immersed in the world, then yeah, that makes sense. But you're plopped in this camp, and then you go to campaign, and then that's when the story actually starts proper. And so you start in the middle of this apocalypse with a cutscene where some of the party is meeting up with a guy, and then that party gets broken up by a zombie attack. And it's like a 3 to maybe 5 minute cutscene of your party escaping this zombie horde that's attacking. And you learn that the zombies are called Ridden, Ridden. Don't know why. And there's I think 5 acts, and each act is a certain amount of levels, and your goal is to go through these levels, find cards that you can equip if you have enough copper, finding new weapons. There's weapon rarities. You can equip accessories to your weapons, like an ACOG or a holographic sight, things like that. As you're going through the level, there are birds that if you disturb them, they'll freak out and then summon a horde to attack. So there are parts where you have to try and get through quietly. You don't have to stealth per se, you just have to not be loud. So instead of sprinting through, you just have to walk through. So things like that, making you are aware of the level. Exploring the level is how you find the copper to then purchase the cards as you're going through. You earn supply line points if you do certain objectives, and the supply line points is how you get cosmetics and new cards to equip for your deck. And the gameplay is L2. It's FPS, right? L2 aim down sights, R2 fire weapon, circle is duck, square reload, triangle is how you switch your weapons, cross, not X. Although, whatever, you know what you mean when someone says that. Cross is jump, L1 is how you ping, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. Up on the D-pad is how you quick message to the people that are with you. Down on the D-pad is a 180, is a quick 180 turn. And left and right on the D-pad are your accessories. The reason I said I wanted to talk about ping is something that stood out to me about this game is that it would have felt more fun with at least a friend. And it's that to for me personally, so I'm sure there are people that don't feel this way. To me personally, I feel like Left 4 Dead was the same way. These games are designed to be experiences that you do with your friend because of there are certain aspects of a game that has unbridled chaos, like when a zombie horde randomly comes out and you gotta shoot everything down, and you gotta be aware of your ammo. There's friendly fire, so you gotta be aware of where you're firing. Like, those moments create fun moments with your friends. And so it's clear that this is designed to be played with friends because one of your major buttons is a ping to alert your allies to a certain area. And up on the D-pad is how you quick message the people that you're playing with. So those things are baked in. And whether you're playing alone or with friends, there's always going to be 4 people. Whether they're bots or people. So yeah, this game took me back to those days of just having those memorable moments with friends, like playing old multiplayer games. Like Time Splitters stands out to me. Obviously GoldenEye, Modern Warfare, like those games were fun, but they meant more because you were typically playing them with at least one friend. And I have a confession to make. I don't know what this says about me. I never experienced a LAN party with friends. The only time I played with friends was if the game and the console allowed for people to play on the same console. Like, I never played LAN Halo or anything like that. I never had multiple systems in like set up in the same area where we were all like, I never got to do that.
That's a bummer.
I know. But I will do you one better than that. Childhood brother, basically brother of mine. I don't want to name drop because I don't know if he wants to be, but you know who I'm talking about, Darren. We played Age of Empires 2. This is a bit of a tangent, but whatever. It shows how dedicated we were. Before the era of the internet we had now, you had to want to do something because there wasn't just a quick Google search on how to, like, do a lot of things. So we wanted to play together, and this was before Wi-Fi. This was during the dial-up days. And so one of the ways that you could play Age of Empires with a friend was through infrared. So the laptops that we had infrared sensors on the side. And we selected infrared and had to finagle our laptops in a certain configuration so that we could play together.
Man, and both of you sit still so well, so I'm sure that was never a problem.
I don't know, like, we weren't sure how close they had to be, but I vividly remember, like, us trying to, like, Voltron our laptops together so that the infrareds were lined up so we could play. Meanwhile, LimeWire or Napster is on the computer behind us downloading the Temple of Time techno remix. And so, the internet was molasses slow. And so, yeah, like, that was my experience with multiplayer on different devices. It wasn't until Xbox Live that I actually got to play with people playing on different consoles. Never had that LAN experience. But this
Not
game,
only not only did I have that LAN experience with Halo 2, which I've mentioned in a previous episode, in my high school physics classes, when we didn't have anything to do, there were computers lining the whole thing, and we set up an entire server to play Quake 2 on PC.
that's phenomenal. Wait, the
And
computers
like
let you get it?
yeah, and our professor played with us, or our teacher, I guess, because this was high school, played with us because like we're fun fact about Darren. Darren was a huge nerd, heavy overachiever back in school. I'm sure that's just a huge stretch of the imagination for some of you. Um, and I was in the IB program, and I was in the higher level physics class, which is like electricity and magnetism and lenses and all the stuff that you take in like physics 2 or physics 3 depending on what college you go to, and we're taking them as juniors in high school. um might have been senior year. I can't remember anymore. But when we got past the IB test, we had nothing to do, and so we had probably for a good month of school, every single class we were just setting up and playing Quake lobbies with our teacher, who would join in with us. I mean, now mind you, this is the same guy who, when we would go to lunch, like me and some other group of people, definitely were always in the physics class at lunch playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and that was just our thing that we did pretty much the entirety of high school. For
I
what it's worth, I was also a 3-season varsity captain, so like don't comfort me, but I I really bridged the gaps on all things. But all that is to say, LAN parties were
it's a
not
core
uncommon for
it's
us.
a core memory for a lot of people. And I never did that because I don't know why. I just didn't. I don't know that I had friends that did that. I do remember my tech ed teacher bought his PS2 and was playing Gran Turismo and God of War the last, like, during finals time. And I
He
I
has two God of War.
I actually remember one of my, would it have been PS3? Cuz I graduated '08. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
PS3 is out.
it,
Yeah.
it might have been PS3. But I remember my classmates were telling him, "Hey, go here for treasure chests." He was like, "Don't tell me unless I ask," because they were spoiling where all the treasure chests were for him. He was getting so mad. But yeah, no, man, high school's a wild, lawless wasteland. But all that is to say that there, if you are looking for a single player experience, I don't know that this game would be it for you, because it's clearly designed with multiplayer in mind. Like that's what it is, and that's okay. That has its place. If you're looking for old school chaotic fun to play with friends, oh my goodness, this game is going to be perfect for you and three other friends, if anybody even has that many friends anymore. But you and three friends would have a blast of just blasting zombies. It's mindless. The campaign each level is bite sized. Each level is not that big. And so I looked up on how long to beat this. I don't think I've ever seen a discrepancy like this. So if you just main story beeline it, it's 12 hours. So not bad. The main story plus side stuff is 23. Completing everything, 100. So I'm not gonna lie,
Jeez.
I don't know where the big jump comes from, but yeah, according to this, completing everything would be 99 and a half hours. So,
So so on the requires multiplayer scale of like we'll call for multiplayer encouraged first person shooters. So on a scale of like the Borderlands franchise to Redfall, where would you put this then? As far as how much does it require, would you say, multiplayer in order to get full enjoyment out of it?
about 50%, because if you are looking, it's when if you play on higher difficulties, you're really going to have to be aware. But this game is great for, I just want a mindless, let's go shoot some zombies in the face. I don't have to care about story. I get stuff at the end where I can buy new cards, I can get cosmetics, I could just sit back and have a YouTube video or a movie on or whatever and just mindlessly do this while that's playing, and I don't have to care that much. This game is going to be right up your alley. If it can fit both. Is it a game that's going to be like your game? I'm here right now. Maybe not. But I think there is a place for just, I don't know what to play right now. I have a show I'm trying to watch, but I don't know that I just want to watch it. Let me just put on some Back for Blood and just go blast some zombies in the face real quick. And it's great.
Sure. Okay.
So, I know you love playing games with friends.
Yeah,
So,
sure don't. So, yeah, I mean, if we still had the like if we were still at the point in our lives where we were, if we had 3-4 weeks to hang out during a winter break and like nothing to do and no responsibilities, no money to make, I could easily see, you know, 2013 versions of us playing this game together.
we would just play
Um,
Sacred 2 instead, let's be honest.
I mean, you're so right. Or Borderlands 2 at this point. I
Borderlands
mean,
2.
but I mean, I could see this being a thing that we would have tried, dabbled with, and then putting down and probably never coming back to, based on how you're explaining it. Um, Not to say we might not have had fun with it. It's just based on what you're saying, it sounds like it does what it does really well, but it doesn't do anything that belies, hey, put everything that you're playing down now and go play this
Yeah.
until you get what you want out of it.
Yeah. That's fair. Now,
But I mean, there's a place for games like that, though, right? I mean, it's
I
as you
mean, yeah.
said. If you
Absolutely.
we find as much as we've talked about everything that's coming out this year that we are just puckering all holes to prepare for. There's gonna be some time in between because while we look at a lot of these games we want to play as these mammoth undertakings, there's also a chance that they might not be. And so because of that, having these games where we potentially just, go in, dabble for a night or two, reset and come back to it, I mean that's not a bad thing to have.
No, it's not. But sounds like you're only maybe convinced.
That might be generous to be fair, but I see a place for it. It's just that place is not right now or on the horizon
That's fair.
or possibly ever. Especially because I have now added another game to my list of things I need to play, which is coming out soon. And that, of course, is Donkey Kong Bonanza, because I have acquired Switch 2.
I was gonna say I wanted to talk about how you feeling now that you finally
Yeah.
copped a Switch 2.
So, man, it's so funny. Walking into stores like in the last week, right? I finally managed to get a Switch 2 online through a major retailer. This same major retailer, I had managed to get one a week or two ago, only for it to be marked as quote unquote damaged during delivery. Uh, I was on the phone with customer support many, many times. Everything was said, oh yeah, just keep the order active. We'll deliver one at some point just for it to be canceled and refunded. And so in that time where I was trying to find one, every time I walked into a major retailer that I know had them stocked, at some point, every time we'd walk in, I'd have this subconscious urge to like I need to sprint to the electronics section just in case they have one. Because if this little asshat to my right gets there faster than me and gets the last one, I'm gonna want to break his
It's
legs.
gonna be Black
Like that
Friday.
type of yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the only person that will end up black is the one who steps in front of me, trying to get that last switch. But now that I've acquired one, just the difference in like mental state and how much calmer I am going into those stores is so nice. We were in a Best Buy yesterday, and I'm just walking through and I'm like, huh, it's just such a peaceful world
What a lovely
when I'm
day.
not like trying to swing on somebody for where I might acquire these delightful things from. But unfortunately, the problem with getting a console like the Switch 2 is now I have to pay attention to Nintendo's releases. And Donkey Kong Bonanza looks like it's going to be potentially a lot of fun. And it also comes out in like 2 weeks.
So
So,
there's one game you talked about getting, and it actually ties into another thing I wanted to talk about. You talked about getting the Bravely Default remaster,
I did.
and which I'm jealous of because I've talked on the show one of the first few episodes about how that game honestly revitalized my love for gaming as it is now, and
Mm,
as crazy as it sounds, kind of introduced me, not introduced me, but reintroduced me into my now favorite genre of all time, which is JRPGs. And so,
Oh, yeah.
something I've noticed, and maybe you may agree or disagree. Do you think there has been a are we in the JR a new JRPG golden age? And here's why I say that. Just in the past 2 years, okay? Just in the past 2 years. Final Fantasy 16, Fire Emblem Engage, Octopath 2, Persona 3 Reload, a bunch of Legend of Heroes games, Atelier Rise of 3, Disgaea 7, Persona 5 Tactica, a Star Ocean 2 remake, Mario RPG remake, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, Sea of Stars, Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster, Grand Blue Fantasy. That was just 2023. Then we have Romancing Saga 2 remake, Visions of Mana, Unicorn Overlord, SMT5 remaster, Monster Hunter Stories 2 remaster, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, which isn't it could be JRPG, Metaphor. And then we have this year where we've had Xenoblade Chronicles X remaster, Like a Dragon, another Legend of Heroes game, Claire Obscure, Fantasy Life I, Rune Factory. Dog, that's just in 2 years.
So I don't know if I want to go so far as to call it like a new golden age. And I say that strictly because of how much you just said that is technically speaking remakes or remasters,
Sure.
which was quite a bit of it, to be fair, right? Now, what I do think is starting to happen, however, is that the average gamer is getting more willing to sit down and play something that is not Call of Duty or Fortnite or Minecraft or Roblox. But they're interested in a narrative. They are looking for maybe some simpler gameplay, other than things you have to go out of your way to master that are going to end up being on, MLG tours. Um, and so I think we're seeing it being more of an accepted genre to play. Whereas kind of like when we were growing up, right, we could make the argument that the time of, let's say, 1997, 96, no, 96, because that's Final Fantasy 6, I believe. 1996 to 2004 was actually the real golden age of JRPGs, right? Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Star Ocean, Till the End of Time, Dark Cloud 1 and 2. Um,
There's
gosh,
you could go on
so
forever.
there's many. There's many of them. Um, but back then, if you were the person who played the JRPG, similar to back then, if you were the person who watched anime, you were the weird kid.
Now, yeah, anime is mainstream now, and I
It
for one like
absolutely.
it. I love it
I
now.
love it. It's so nice, except for all the gatekeeping, because it's so unnecessary. Because most of the people who are trying to gatekeep anime haven't, like, they weren't around for when anime was a gatekeepable thing. But that's a whole concept or a whole topic for another time. Um, but now I just think it's more okay for people to want to play RPGs and get really involved with them. I mean, God, we just had a whole Magic the Gathering collab with the Final Fantasy franchise, which was purchased and scalped so aggressively that, like, even I don't know anything about Magic the Gathering. I know it's a card game. That's what I got. Um, Commander decks for the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering set, just a deck that is like it comes in a box and you can play it straight away in the Commander format, I guess. Just that was $76.
Ooh.
You can go buy all 6 of the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters for less than that. But all that is to say, so I don't know if I'd call it a golden age. I just think it's becoming much more acceptable now. If we continue to see new titles coming out, like new innovative things. Like, obviously we can't technically call Clair Obscur a JRPG because it's not Japanese, but
JRPG
it's
inspired.
that format. Yeah, it's that format, right? I think if we get more games like that that do well and that people really want to play, man, I don't see why not, and I'm all here for it. That said, if for some reason anybody relevant in the wake of all of these remakes and remasters, please give me a Star Ocean Till the End of Time remaster.
No, that's not what you want. What are you talking about?
Please.
You want Golden Sun.
I mean, I want that too, but that's a different company. I want Star Ocean Till the End of Time to be remastered. I know they're
It,
talking about,
it
there's all these
was.
rumors about Final Fantasy IX. Star Ocean Till the End of Time was never remastered. No.
Or am I thinking Last Hope?
You are thinking Last Hope. You are
No.
thinking you're thinking the Star Ocean 2. You're thinking the fact that
Ah, you're right.
tried
Yeah.
to they tried to awkwardly reskin Till the End of Time and call it Integrity and Faithlessness, but they made the story worse, the game worse, the characters worse, and everything else worse.
We don't talk
Um,
about integrity and faithlessness.
we do not.
We don't talk about that.
Um, so if like Star Ocean wants to give me that, or like maybe we could remake Infinite Undiscovery, that'd be pretty sweet.
So what I like, yeah, there's a new one that I'm waiting for, which is being made by I think Level 5 is Deca Police, which is like a crime RPG JRPG,
Hmm.
which looks really cool, but it's been pushed back so many daggone times. No idea when it's gonna come out. But yeah, no, I agree. I think if we can start getting more, asking for more Clair Obscurs is a lofty expectation. However,
Yeah,
in the same vein, passion projects,
yeah,
because the people who made Clair Obscur clearly care about JRPGs, and that's who should be making JRPGs is people who grew up playing them or care about them. So I don't know. We will see.
to
If
that
not,
point.
oh,
To that point, like, give the people who made Chris Tales more money to make a bigger game,
fair.
because they had their fingers on the pulse of what a JRPG is so well that that has to be understood, studied, and done something about. Please, like, I hope I can't recall the studio and I feel terrible for it off the top of my head, but I hope that they get the love that they truly deserve, because my goodness, do they actually really and genuinely deserve it?
Yeah, and if we can't call it a golden age, I think we can at least call it a resurgence, because
Absolutely,
we
a
were
renaissance is fine.
we were dry The JRPG landscape was dry for a long time, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad that it is back. But before we close out, I said earlier that I want to talk about 2012 in games because I was curious about
Hmm.
what had come out. So, just looking at a wiki article about the notable 2012 games, we had
Uh
Persona
huh.
4 Golden,
Uh huh.
Walking Dead, the Telltale games,
Uh huh.
um, Mass Effect 3,
Uh huh.
Journey, Fire Emblem Awakening, Dishonored,
Uh huh.
Borderlands 2, Far Cry 3, to NBA 2K13, a Dark Souls DLC, but Black Ops 2,
Hmm.
Pokemon Black and White 2.
Hmm. Keep going.
Is that when Minecraft was released?
Diablo 3,
Oh, I didn't even see
Kingdom
Diablo
Hearts
3.
Dream Drop, Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, Assassin's
3DS.
Creed 3, Lollipop Chainsaw, for those who
Nice.
cared about that, Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, New Super Mario Brothers U, Asura's Wrath, Guild Wars 2,
Max
Ninja
Payne
Gaiden
3.
3, Skylanders Giants back when that was just decimating the landscape, Gravity Rush, P4 Arena.
Darksiders 2. Resident Evil
Yeah.
Revelation. Dang,
RE6.
2012 was a pretty good year. That was, and remember, the world was supposed to end that year.
Yes, it was, and at least it would have gone out with the bang that is Borderlands 2. So all that is to say, there think back on this hard now knowing here we are 13 years later. In what world were you going to convince me to play Kingdom of Amalur when I had Borderlands 2?
But keep in mind, this was before Borderlands became to you what it is. So,
Borderlands 2 is what did that though.
uh, yes, but Borderlands
And it
2.
had such an aggressive chokehold on me. And if you remember back in the annals of our history, that is squarely your fault
Yes, it is.
because I did not buy Borderlands 2 on launch.
I
I
also
went
need.
up to your apartment, which at the time was not particularly close, and we hung out. And you were playing as Salvador, and I remember playing it, and it was that stupid deliver the letters mission, and I was like, wow, this sucks. I hope there's not more stuff like this. And it wasn't probably 4 weeks later that I owned that game and have consequently, there's no way I haven't put at least 1,000 hours into it.
My apartment, that I would have been living at home at that point because that was
No.
2012. I didn't go to Towson until 2013.
When it was pretty late 2012, I believe.
It was September
Um,
2012.
yeah, that would be the fall of the 2013 school year.
Oh my
And so you were
gosh,
in, there you go. And so you were in the apartment by yourself when that came out.
man.
It had just come out too.
Also, slow your roll because you're sitting there saying, "Oh, Borderlands." Amalur came out February of that year. Borderlands was September of that year. So no, you were not in a
That
chokehold
that
with
makes it
Borderlands.
that makes it even worse. Because if it was February of 2012, what came out 3 months before that?
But did were you still playing Skyrim? I guess you would have been. I don't.
Come on.
I no
Was I
no I
still playing
I don't.
Skyrim? I played Skyrim last year.
Well, yes, I know that now, but I don't know, man. There, time's all wibbly wobbly. It's weird.
There was no. You were between the rock and the hardest place. Skyrim and Borderlands 2 came out less than a year apart. So that's like that's two of my top four games all time in less than a calendar year from each other.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Oh man.
And in between that, Pokemon Black and White 2, Pokemon Black and White 2 were bangers. Absolute bangers. And the biggest generation that I played competitive.
Okay. So yeah, no, your time was occupied, but I still loved Kingdoms of Amalur. But with that said, that is our time. Next time, as Darren stated, will be a Convince Me Nostalgia where we will both be playing games that we remember loving, and we're going to see if they hold up or are still worth playing. I will be doing GoldenEye 64, and Darren will be trying Lost Odyssey. Spoiler for the next episode, he's not going to have to try very hard to convince me that Lost Odyssey holds up. I think I can still safely say that I am super interested in going back to Lost Odyssey, but who knows? Maybe things have changed. Maybe it's not exactly what we remember, but that's the point. Maybe it didn't. But we'll see what happens on the next episode. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on social media. Leave comments, leave feedback, leave suggestions. We're always up to hear new segments. Um, there are some things that I want to try. We'll see if we end up doing them. Follow us on Convince Me Gaming, Convince Me Media, Convince Me Podcast. Shoot us messages, DMs, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And thank you for giving us your time. With that said,
Are you convinced yet? That was awful. Don't ever make those faces again. I hope the people listening didn't see those.